Here I'm replacing the brake booster on my 2003 Land Rover Defender TD5. I'm replacing it because I've had a problem with this brakes binding or sticking periodically. I suppose sticking on is better than them sticking off. Initially I thought the problem was down to the brake master cylinder, but after changing the master cylinder twice I realised this really wasn't the problem. There was no real pattern to how the brakes were sticking on. It was just intermittent and quite confusing. At first the sensation was like my Land Rover was just losing power for some reason, and it was almost at the most inconvenient times. The dead giveaway was the smell of overheating brake pads when I stopped. It was just a process of elimination. After changing the brake master cylinder twice, I thought the only real explanation would be the brake booster. So I ordered one and went about replacing it. First part of the job is to remove the brake fluid from the brake fluid reservoir. To do this I'm using one of those cheap siphon tubes. It's got quite a small bore, so it takes a little while to drain out the fluid, but it's still pretty effective. Once the fluid's drained out, I've set about removing the brake master cylinder. I could have removed the cylinder and the booster together all as one unit, but I prefer to do it this way, individually. I don't think there's any need to show the removal of the master cylinder, as I covered that in the previous video. Once I've got the master cylinder off, I take all the necessary precautions to prevent any dirt or dust going into the cylinder or all the pipe work. Now I can start removing the brake booster, and the first thing to do is to remove the split pin that holds in place the clevis pin. This is the link between the brake pedal and the brake booster. There are two holes of approximately 40mm in diameter either side of the brake pedal housing, where you can access both the split pin and remove the clevis pin. These two access holes normally have black plugs in them, which I've already removed. Once the pin's out, it's just a case of undoing the 4 nuts that hold the brake booster to the brake pedal housing, not forgetting to disconnect the non-return valve from the brake booster. To detach this, just give it a firm pull away from the grommet that's within the booster. Once the 4 nuts have been successfully removed, it's just a case of manoeuvring the booster away from the brake pedal housing and avoiding bending or breaking any of the pipes that go from the brake master cylinder. As you can see here, it's quite easy to remove the clevis pin, and keyhole surgery is not my strongest point. Cosmetically, the outcoming brake booster looks to be in quite good condition. I've left the new brake booster in the box right up until the last minute, and it's a little bit awkward to get it out. It's more like wearing the box than in it. Eventually I extricate it from the box, and it looks to be quite a good quality item. The new brake booster comes with all 4 new nuts, a cover for the bellows type mechanism, a cap over the open end, and also a new non-return valve. First I remove the 4 new nuts, and then I take off the plastic cover from the bell housing. Next I've got to fit the new brake booster, firstly lining up the holes that link the brake pedal with the actual booster itself. This is not too difficult, and you know, considering keyhole surgery isn't my strong point. Eventually I get the thread through the holes and the nuts started. I also get the link between the brake booster and the brake pedal lined up. As you can see, I'm making a real dog's dinner of this. Now the linkage holes are lined up, as you can see here, all I've got to do is put the clevis pin in, and I do that from around at the back there. I get it in there, and then I put the split pin in with a pair of pin nose pliers. It's not a real problem if you drop the split pin or the clevis pin, because they just fall inside the cab underneath the brake pedal. Here you can see I've successfully got this split pin into the clevis pin. With a pair of pin nose pliers I make sure that the split pin is fully bent over, as we don't want this linkage coming undone at any time, let alone when we're driving. Once that's all done and the non-return valves reconnected and I've refitted the brake master cylinder, I fill the brake fluid reservoir up. Once the reservoir is full, I then just put the cap back on and just clean up the area. And now for the joy of bleeding the brakes on my own. Now I know you don't have to take the wheels off to do this, but I prefer to do it. It gives me easier access, and also I want to check for any movement in the wheel bearings, as I've got an MOT coming up shortly, and a couple of years ago my Land Rover failed on loose wheel bearings. The first thing I do is chock the wheels. Then before jacking the vehicle up, I do the initial loosening of the wheel nuts with my 600mm breaker bar. I know for safety I should really use an axle stand, but I've only got the wheel jacked up for a short while and I'm not actually getting under the vehicle, so I think I should be alright. For bleeding the brakes I use one of those one-man brake bleeding sets, but I've modified it with a bigger bottle because the smaller bottle keeps falling over, and I've also lengthened the tube. I've lengthened the tube because I like the tube from the nipple, I like the tube to go up before it goes down into the bottle. My theory is that the air will always rise and the solid plug of fluid travelling down the tube the other side will maintain negative pressure at the nipple. Hopefully here you can see how I do it. I have a rise and a fall from the brake nipple, and when I pump the brakes you can actually see the fluid move. Once each brake point has been bled or vented, it's time to replace the wheels. I don't think I'm going to be getting any calls from Formula 1 anytime soon, judging by the speed at which I'm doing this, considering it's speeded up as well. Refitting the wheels is just a reverse of taking them off, obviously. Once the wheel is back on the ground, I go round all the nuts again with my breaker bar, and then I check everything with the torque wrench. Replacing the brake booster is a complete success. My brakes are now perfect, probably better than ever, and also the vehicle seems to be running a lot better. I did read somewhere that a faulty booster can create a bit of back pressure in the engine. I'd just like to thank everybody that subscribed to this channel. It's really inspired me to do another video. Thank you.